that's pretty.
Yep, maxed this one out pretty recently. It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to fill it?
Honestly, probably like a year and a half.
Okay.
You label them, don't you?
Yeah.
Very
I can
precise.
tell. That's awesome barrelhead labeling, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I got to get my assistant to do that because my handwriting is garbage. So, relax.
So that's your assistant?
Yeah.
Is it a woman?
No, it's just a very fastidious guy.
Because, man, that's awesome. You don't see that.
No.
Most of the time it's a black marker just whipped off.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing is like, I feel like part of the reason for that is that a lot of those distilleries, they make bourbon, so they're not going to keep the barrel. So it doesn't really matter what it looks like after the fact. When I use a new barrel, like we make a lot of rum and I put it in a new barrel, after I dump it, I'm immediately filling that with single malt. So then you have a rum barrel aged single malt. So I kind of want to think about, the lifespan of all of our barrels. That's one of the reasons that I also spend a lot more money to get barrels that have 18-month seasoned staves, and a lot of them have toasted heads or toasted staves as well.
Nice.
So,
Makes sense.
Cool. Anyway, in here we got a bunch of different things. We got some more of our rum, got a little bit of bourbon, and a whole lot of single malt. So I figure we can start tasting through a little bit of our single malt. I can talk about, how we make that, the sort of process behind it. First kind of get situated and grab a hammer and...
This is Alan Bishop, head alchemist at Spirits of French Lick. Be on the lookout for a brand new bottled and bond Solomon Scott rye whiskey. Made from a mash composed of 65% rye, 35% corn, and 5% victory malt. This 5-year-old 100 proof rye whiskey is a throwback to early 1800s style rye whiskeys of the Ohio Valley. Named after the legendary Daisy Spring Mill distillery owner turned moonshiner Solomon Scott of Paoli, Indiana. Remember, drink responsibly and never drink and drive.
Sure fun to watch. We love what we do, we're drinking every brew, and we talk some shit, but we're telling the truth. Yeah, we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, raisins in hell and making some noise. Yeah, we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, we're here to have fun and we hope you enjoy. We're here to have fun.
Some of these are like really stubborn.
Doesn't want to grab, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you're gonna have to get it in a little bit.
There you go.
Then that's starting to feel like it's starting to do its thing.
Yep.
And at some point I'll just have to replace this bowl. Alright.
There we go. Just don't do your knuckles.
Yeah, I've had that happen.
There we go. Friend who's a landowner, not a farmer, but he's got a bog on the property. So we were like, great, we got in contact with him, really cool dude. Went out there, he was interested in, we compensated him in rye whiskey for the peat, the first batch. So he's just like a whiskey dork himself, and the nice thing is he's not a farmer, so it's all like on like really well preserved land. and we just got real lucky with getting in touch with him. So
That's awesome.
So we're a little bit limited in how much we're able to put down in this.
So when peat is smoked, what's that process? I've never heard how it works. So
Well,
is it in like a
There's videos. I mean, seriously, they do. Isla, they'll show you exactly. Just he can describe it, but you have to see it, and YouTube just shows it left and right. Right.
Yeah.
Big giant rooms. They start it up. They start whatever, and then they just blow the smoke over the malting barley. Right.
Yeah.
And then
Exactly.
That's
So-
why it gets so much of that similarity to a smoked agave. It's kind of a similar thing,
Exactly.
yeah,
just a
during
different
the
plant.
So yeah, a lot
Well,
of the same like.
it's timing.
compounds that
Did
are-
you guys go in the process of actually when you were doing the malting and everything, and right there as you were blowing the peat that you had harvested, right? Mm-hmm. You were part of that process.
The smoking, not so much.
Oh, you didn't. Who did the smoke? Where do you get? I mean,
Sugar Creek Malt Company
Okay.
in Lebanon, Indiana. They're amazing. There are right now they're our sole malt supplier. I said small operation, family-owned farm, and they have a small smoker that they use.
So then, you show up with this peat.
Yeah.
And they're just like, I'm sure they're not doing a lot of peat smoking there.
No, because
So-
we mostly supply breweries anyway.
Yeah.
So we basically had to say like, look, we really want to do this project. We think you guys would be the perfect partner. Like, what do you think if we were able to bring you some peat? They were all about it.
That's awesome.
So you look at, we finish off the weekend drinking peated single malt. Now, how many years is this now?
This is. This is actually just shy of 2.
And I could sit back by the camp, by my fire and sip that.
It's really good.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. Peat is really cool because also by using a refill barrel, you get more flavor from the raw ingredient, so you get more of the character of the malt and the peat.
So I'm getting the smokiness of peat. So my worst experience was Ardbeg.
Yeah.
I can't drink it. Seriously, I tried, and it would fuck my stomach up. It would, it's like drinking gun oil or some sort of poison. And everybody's like, well, you really got to build up to that. And I'm just like, it tastes like shit. Why do I want to build up to it? You know what I mean? But that, you're pulling me in on the level where probably then people just keep building up as their taste buds taste the peat, and then they get a little more and a little more. They get to that point where that's what they're looking for. But at the same time, I understand. I mean, I like absinthe. I know you got, and I like black licorice. Mm-hmm. So, Bill, I love black licorice so much that I was drinking absinthe and eating black licorice, chunks at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it's like, but there's a lot of people that were like, ew, black licorice. So it's the same thing with, I get it with the peat.
Yeah, it's kind of love it or hate it. And, for me, I think that, in spirits making, balance is just so important. You have
that's
to find-
balanced.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to go. I didn't want to hit you over the head with peat. I want everybody to experience it, but at the same time, I want it to be a very complete single malt. It's got a decent amount of ex-bourbon barrel character in it. It's double pot distilled, so you're not distilling it to a very high proof where you're going to lose a lot of that flavor from the malt itself.
Well, put it this way, for a while, that's what I see. I see American single malt. One, you guys, I know you're using used barrels, new barrels, but then used barrels are going to be the thing with what's happening with the barrels and the demand for bourbon. It just gets more and more and more, and eventually we're going to have to start using used barrels, and American single malt just makes sense that's what's coming. You won't ever... If there's a barrel shortage, you can't get new barrels. You guys are making single malt. All you have to do is reuse the barrels, buy barrels that, and that's gonna, I really see that as something in the next 15, 20 years. This is where we're going to. You can't just be making, there's not an endless supply because the demand is so high. Mm-hmm. I mean, when the big guys are having problems getting barrels or glass, then you guys are the little guys. But I see that you have ISC, so that's a pretty good...
Yeah, we were able to manage the barrel shortage with them. They've been great partners for us. But you're right, we are able to do things that you can't really do in bourbon. And it's not just a matter of like dealing with the supply chain, but it's also finding new flavors. Like for me, barrel finishing with interesting barrels is cool, but I'm really all about like full term maturation.
Right.
What happens
I
when
get
you
it.
put a spirit in a rum barrel and let it sit for its whole life in that rum barrel?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the cool things that you can do in single malt is it doesn't even have to touch a new barrel.
Right.
And you can just like have it go really all in
I
that
mean,
direction.
half of Scotland's using used bourbon barrels. I mean, that's where they're shipping them. I mean, you can't reuse them here when you're making bourbon. But I also see a American whiskey category too, where they're going to make bourbon, but in used barrels. I see that coming too.
We also taste some single malt that's aged in rum barrels. That's fun as well.
This is the Illinois right there.
Let's see what we got.
Unwrap it all over the package. And it's you.
You know what? Just for sake of being able to access it, let me try opening this guy
All right.
and taste that one first.
That was his Christmas present from his wife. She said, "Do you want that you don't have?"
Nice.
Yeah. Beauty. It's pretty much we have some cool videos with it too. The first time he used it, we were at Spirit French Lick.
There we go.
All right.
His wife's like,
You want to bring
"Yes."
some glasses and a thief?
Yep.
All right.
Oh, are you guys want to do this or?
If we can.
Yeah.
I just.
Don't fall and sue us. But otherwise,
I'm not gonna get on the ledge.
We might fall, but we won't sue you.
I appreciate that. It's a gentleman right there.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, you're doing. Look at he learned from Hannah. You gonna grab some?
Oh, yeah.
My glass is right
Right
back.
behind you.
It's like, it's so cool because just coming to meet you guys and be able to do this and him be able to do that.
It's my favorite
It's
part.
his favorite part is spins.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers to y'all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming out.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, taste the char on that one. A little bit of smoke, just a little bit. So that's what you're going after. How long has it been in the barrel?
This is about 2 years right now. And we have two main mash bills for our single malt. This is our unpeated. So you're actually getting a lot of that smoke from the malts that we're choosing. Use 4 different brewers malts. One of them is a pale two-row, like a pale ale malt. The other one is a Munich malt, which gives it a little bit of a toastiness, kind of like a bread crust flavor. The other one is a British brown malt that gives you a little bit of coffee, a little bit of smoke, a bit more caramel. And then finally, Special B, which is really cool. It's a dark malt that is roasted dark malt that's used by a lot of Belgian brewers to give a very strong note of apricots and sherry and those like really dark caramel and stewed fruit flavors. And this is aged in a char 2 barrel, 18-month seasoned staves and toasted casquettes.
Okay.
So a lot of barrels, they don't really bother, thinking about all this surface area on the head.
Right.
So I really want to make sure that those are toasted. We're getting a lot of nice vanilla, caramel flavors coming through that.
So this is
Nice, huh?
like you're using some of the malts instead of it being peated, but you're still doing some things to it with smoke and whatever. It's just not it's not heavy, and so you have all the different malts that you're putting in, and then the one malt, like you said, is very flavorful as far as other, and then just mixing them. How long do you? I mean, when you're talking about single malts, age starts to play a part, but you are putting yours in brand new barrels, right?
Yeah,
And
we do both. So when we release our single malt, I expect it to be in brand new barrels, ex-bourbon, ex-rum, and ex-rye barrels.
Okay.
So it's going to be a blend of everything.
So how long will that one stay there until you're ready to?
I mean, I think we will probably start releasing stuff when it's around 4 years. But the idea is, you keep most of your stuff.
Single malts, that age thing is a big thing with, like you said, 10, 15, 12, right?
Yeah.
But you're going to start with, I mean, this was delicious. For 2 years, it's already delicious.
Really?
So.
I hear Ari say a lot, they're ready when they're ready.
Yeah.
So it's like, just tasting through them and letting the barrel sort of determine.
Yeah.
And having, different expressions. Like, of course, we're going to sit on some barrels for as long as we possibly can and see how that goes. I was talking to a buddy of mine who works at a really big single malt, American single malt distillery. He said, we started releasing stuff at 2 years. Right now, almost all of our stuff is between 4 and 7. That's kind of how you have to do it.
Yeah.
Is you kind of have to just steadily move towards an older age.
You gotta make money.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would say, if I was you bottled that right now, I would buy it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's ready or whatever, but it's sweet. There's nothing off-putting at it at all. There's a little bit. You got the perfect amount of smoke, char kind of feel for it, for a person who's not a big fan of peat. Mm-hmm. Now, someone who's a fan of peat, they'd be like, okay, probably needs more time and whatever, but at the same
There's
time,
a lot of bourbon people that would drink this though and enjoy it.
Yeah,
like,
and that's
not
a
your
cool-
peated person. But
Yeah.
just a guy that's buying or drinking regular bourbon.
And that's the cool thing about being able to use new barrels and having those worked in is like, American single malt, there's so many different things you can do. That's why it's such an
with the
exciting
new
category.
barrel, I mean, honestly, you don't have to put that 15, 12-year age. I mean, when you're talking about a McClellan or whatever, they're using those used barrels. And when you use a used barrel, you need more time. I mean, some of these Canadian 20 or 25-year-old barrels, the reason why it could come out and still be light is it was a used barrel. I mean, and, in Canada, you can pretty much do anything you want.
Yeah.
So,
I guess the next... Yeah.
right, yeah, that's the
Anything
rules.
goes in Canada.
That is the rules,
It's
yes.
the Wild West.
I mean, we kind of try and make them a little bit more honest now because this is just getting so big, and if they're going to play, they better play a little bit more honest. But Crown, there's caramel coloring in there. So
Yep. And
real loud.
You can have something like 9% of a wine product in Canadian
Yeah,
whiskey.
you could put anything in there.
Wow.
You could do what you want. Now I'm not saying that Canadians can be they're good blenders. And so we've been coming across people blending, taking rum and adding a little bit of rye.
Got a brewery here, Western Frontier, as a woman-owned business. And she operated that initially and utilized there was an artesian spring on the property. Bielefeld, he comes across the property, purchases it in the 1850s, builds the building as it stands in 1857, forming Bielefeld Brewing Company. So right now we're standing in the basement of the original residence, and then the bar is the original production brewery. This photo, top left there, my favorite exterior photo, shows the Bielefeld family there on the front porch if you look closely. We're actually standing underneath them right now in the basement. So that's a marvelous photo from the 1890s. It's pretty impressive that they were able to coordinate that. If you look, there's a guy posing in a canoe down there in the creek.
Yep.
You have one of the original horse-drawn delivery carriages there with some barrels of beer on the back. And then to the left of the Bielefeld family there on the porch, that's the original production brewery. That's now today a tasting room and cocktail bar. You see there's a malting tower on there. It was totally self-sufficient at that time. This is pre-electricity. These guys are making lager-style beers. They're fermenting below the frost line to maintain those cellar temps. They had a full cooperage on site where they were making barrels. The property's changed quite a bit though. As you can see in that photo, there's no longer a front porch on the building. The malting tower is no longer there. The property's endured 3 different fires throughout its history, and also a tornado that happened in 1910. The photo bottom left there shows the aftermath of the tornado that came through. That's dead of winter, which is interesting. Those guys are like, why are you having me pose for a photo before I start cleanup? But the building went through quite a lot. Bielefeld Brewing grew to the largest brewery in the region. They were distributing their beer into Indiana, up to the city of Chicago, out to Joliet, downstate. Bielefeld had a competitive advantage. He had limestone filtered artesian well water. A lot of the guys up in the city, you know, they were using water that was, I guess, not as pristine, if you will. Bielefeld Brewing just continued to grow and grow. He became a pretty popular guy. In fact, this photo was taken after he was elected to office. So he served as a contemporary to Lincoln in the Illinois House. He was a senator. Both the Republican Party. He was a statesman, though. He served and then went back to the private sector afterwards. Then Bielefeld actually passes away New Year's Eve 1899. His son John Jr. takes over. John Jr. is the fella sitting there with the pocket watch. He continued to grow the company. It seemed like every 5 or 6 years they'd add another portion of the building on. Things were really good for Bielefeld Brewing Company. A fire, a tornado, an act of God didn't end them. It was an act of Congress. So enter Prohibition. In 1920, John Jr. sells the brewery to his head brewer, Carl Ebner. Ebner was the head brewer from the start. That year, curiously, Ebner registers as a soda pop bottler with the census, which proved to be a very clever front. I mean, this building is in Cook County here. It has everything you need to make beer, and soda pop, for that matter, but the history gets a little murky at that time. We tried to substantiate the history during Prohibition with Chicago Tribune articles. So the story goes that Ebner wanted to get in on the ground floor of the illegal bootlegging market. There was a big market for it. You know, the black market was established. Early on, a lot of low-level people wanted to get in on it. One of my favorite photos we have here, top right, shows the Blank family, another working class immigrant family. Their descendants still live in Thornton. In fact, the little blonde girl in the front right is the great grandmother of the mayor's wife, which is interesting. So the family, though, the Blank family, working class family, drinking was part of the social fabric, their culture. So a lot of those laws banning drinking at the time were targeting immigrants, right? So they outlawed drinking beer on Sundays because Germans like to drink beer after church, right? And when Prohibition's enacted, there were a lot of people that just weren't having it. So if you look closely at that sign, it says First Dry Sunday in Thornton, not us. And then you have mom, filling a beer up. You have dad with the squeeze box. So it just kind of shows you what the sentiment was then. So Ebner starts brewing beer here. Now the story goes that there were some powerful forces in Chicago that also wanted to get in on the bootlegging, market, and so they approach Ebner and say, "You're either with us or against us." Now at that time, a fire occurs, a government raid takes place. Chicago Tribune talks about government agents raiding the building, hundreds of barrels being poured into Thorn Creek. And then Ebner just kind of up and disappears after that.
So they didn't care that they killed the fish back then, right?
Yeah, so supposedly the fish enjoyed the beer. It was really good stuff.
It's not how it works, but yeah.
I'm speculating a little there, but Ebner takes over the operation. He disappears after the raid, and so the rumor is that he was, taken care of or something like that. Now, the Historical Society told me he resurfaces in the 1950s in Wisconsin. A brewer with the same name pops up. So maybe he just got out of town. But during Prohibition, there was a lot of activity here on the property. There wasn't another raid after the initial raid. You'd think the property would have been on everyone's radar after that, but
it's Chicago.
At that time, Thornton had one of the largest greyhound tracks in the state, the Thornton Coursing Club. And then there was also the Washington Park Horse Track. So it was kind of a gangster's paradise. You had lots of gambling down here. We're in Cook County. We're outside the city, though. The Prohibition era, they had everything they needed to make beer here. Subsequent to Prohibition, a few breweries tried to reopen here, but had a really hard time about it. This kind of coincides with the advent of the refrigerated train car, so now, breweries could ship their product nationwide. So now the mom and pops that wanted to reopen were competing against, big players. Frankly, consumers were just happy to drink a beer at that point. So we had 3 that opened, the first of which was Thornton Brewing Company. All of them really emphasize, brewed with pure artesian well water. Thornton Brewing Company, supposedly mob owned. There's some Tribune articles about some fellas trying to open up after Prohibition here, and the judge banning them from the bidding process on the building because of their sort of nefarious past. So supposedly those guys that were banned started a shell company that became Thornton Brewing Company.
You mean like the dog racing in Kenosha, that one where they were banning everybody, but the only successful dog racing that ever happened was that one.
Okay.
They knew how to do it.
Interesting. The Thornton Brewing Company, made famous Thornton good old-fashioned lager beer, and so that was why this building was so famous. Like the beer before Prohibition was very well known throughout the state as some of the best beer you could get. So afterwards, there were people that wanted to try to revive that, but like I said, it was just more competitive. So Thornton Brewing ends up selling after a handful of years to the Fredericks brothers that did Fredericks Brewing. Now they were by far the most successful post-Prohibition brewery that operated from here. Historical Society told me they had a military contract where they were distributing their product to different military bases across the country.
40s and 50s, right?
Yeah. So you'll find these trays and whatnot on eBay still, but they ended up trying to bring back additional brands as well. I think they had 10 or 20 brands that were flowing from here. There was Van Nester beer, which had like a windmill. Looked like they were trying to, there's a big local Dutch population, so they were probably trying to market towards them. There was also a brand called, let's see, so McAvoy Malt Morrow. These are full bottles that we got from the Historical Society that were found on the property.
We have not dared to open them and try them quite yet.
Yeah. So Malt Morrow.
If it was whiskey, that'd be a whole different story. But
Yep.
The Malt Morrow is a big brand from the city pre-Prohibition. In fact, I just saw an advertisement the other day where it was the most expensive beer you could buy in Chicago. If you look closely, their like mascot's a little kid drinking a beer, smoking a pipe. So
Would not fly today.
Yeah, it would not fly at all today. And then the Malt Morrow, I think, was a health reference. At the pre-Prohibition, it was safer to drink beer than water a lot of times, and so there were a lot of claims they could make back then that they can't make today. The Fredericks brothers also went on to. There was Van Nester, a few other products. They had Illinois Brewing Company. At one point, they were making Pepsi Cola here. Again, making health claims, saying refreshingly healthful. There was also White Cross Mineral Springs here, where they were just bottling the mineral water and selling it. We also found, one of the coolest things we found during the renovation process are these old postcards. So when we were building out, we have a full commercial kitchen upstairs for the weddings and the restaurant here. When the guys were removing this walk-in fridge and they ripped out the ceiling, the cigar box full of these postcards was found. We gave these to the Historical Society to preserve and scan. She went through and dated all these for us. They're like from the 1800s all the way into the, up to like about 1920. These are orders. So that one down there says, please send more beer tomorrow. Now, I don't know how this postal service worked back then. It's not the greatest today, so I don't know how long that would take to...
Yeah, you probably got to queue it up a couple weeks in advance.
Yep. So just finding stuff like this, though, was amazing.
Yeah.
We started the company...
It might have been delivered by the Pony Express.
Exactly, right?
No, seriously. 1800s, it had to be horses.
Yeah, exactly. It's pre-electricity. It's just, it kind of boggles my mind. But that's the kind of stuff that made the project fun. When we started the distillery, we came across this property. It had been vacant for, I think, almost 20 years. It was a blighted property, super rich history. But the fact that the limestone filtered artesian well water still flowed, like that really piqued our interest. But then it was a matter of what's it going to take to try to revive this property. So we started in 2015. By the time we get to market, we did a grand opening 2019. We had our labels in place. December 2019, we did our
got
grand opening, and then 2 months later,
Yeah, you
shut
got
down,
some nice aging time.
Yes. So I took that on the chin like everyone else, and then they gave us a lot of time to focus on the maturation process.
Yeah.
Ari kept laying barrels down. We ended up making sanitizer like everyone else. The process, though, bring back the building took about 5 years to get it to where it's at today. Right now, we're about 90% done.
Well, that had to help too, not having that pressure. Like, people couldn't come, so you can I understand money-wise that's financial, but you get through, but you don't have that pressure of, let's get this, we got to get this because it wasn't there, right? You could do it a certain way. Now I know now that it's coming back now, if you're 90% there, you're glad you're open and everything like that.
Yeah, we do. It's a 20,000 square foot facility, so we host weddings, we have a restaurant, a bar, so there's all these different sort of companies under one umbrella, so different business models. But we're definitely excited about 2023. It's been like a normal year so far for us. So with regard to the history, though, like that was so intriguing for us. We kind of, when we tell folks about the Dead Drop name, Dead Drop's an old bootlegging term, right? So if I were to make you a barrel of whiskey or beer, and then I hid it behind the bush on the corner of Blackstone and Margaret Street, and you came back at midnight and picked it up, that's a Dead Drop. So we kind of look at the history of malt fermentation in the building and look at it as us picking up from where our predecessors left off. Ari utilizes pretty traditional techniques back there, so we're hoping that the original stewards of the building would be happy with what we're doing today. And Dead Drop kind of sounds cool. The drop side of it kind of incorporates the water, which is the common thread throughout the history, from the early immigrant brewers that were here to the Prohibition era gangsters to us today. That's all. I feel like the water's key to the building's history. It's key to everything we do, which is why there's a little drop in the lock there.
Nice.
So I like to say, that water is the common thread. That leads us to the next stop on this little tour. We're going to go down into the artesian well.
And I like that it's like a super old lock too. It's not one you just went and picked up from Lowe's.
You want us to go first?
Yeah, if you want to.
All right.
Watch your head and your feet.
Yep.
That's awesome. Do we have Rocky Road ice cream down there?
We do patrol.
Wow. I'm taking it easy. Nice.
Amazing temperature changes just as you start walking down.
All right, there we go. All right, how am I fitting through this? I don't know.
Oh no, the last guy didn't make it. That's right there. He got stuck.
Wow. Jim Beam doesn't even have this. They got a place, but not like this. This is awesome. Yeah. When you first saw that, what did you think?
So this is what was the big appeal for Ari and I, was the artesian well. So artesian wells are different than like a regular farm well. They're much, much deeper and they're naturally pressurized. This one taps into the deepest aquifer in Illinois. In fact, it's fed all the way up north from Lake Superior. It's kind of this underground river that follows kind of the coastline of Lake Michigan, and then it's up to 1,500 feet deep.
Hey, Scotchy Bourbon Boys, Tiny here to tell you about Log Still Distillery. Log Still Distillery is forging new roads for generations to come at their old Kentucky home by bringing bourbon back to Gethsemane. Guided by Wally Dant and cousins Lynn and Charles Dant, Log Still is firmly built on faith and family. They fill each bottle with respect while honoring the history of bourbon and their family itself. Ever mindful that faith, family, community, and bourbon paved the way for future generations. They invite you to visit them in Gethsemane. Sure, you'll find a lot that's shiny and new, but what you'll feel is something deep and soulful. Visit them also on the web at www.logstilldistillery.com.
The water drips down the back of my neck.
You've been anointed.
I want to see. Oh my God.
Supposedly Capone tortured people down there, but
there's no way for us to verify that, so I kind of just say it, speculating.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if people died there. 'Cause
Like, there's all this shit about, bringing debtors in there that owed them money for, like,
and it's,
fees and stuff.
you
So.
can tell you're running. That's a cool name, Lucifer.
Yeah. So let me get into that a little bit. You drink absinthe a little bit. You know what dilution is?
Yeah.
So
it's
turns
a
milky
play
and
on
all that
names.
stuff. So
Which one do you want to start with?
He's got the Glencairn thing down right there. I really love it's like, I feel like you're almost getting ready to bottle, that's like what they use to wash the bottles, you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
got the whole system. That's cool as fuck, just so you know.
no, that's awesome. Like you see that in a lot of like really, really well done beer bars.
Yeah.
It's a very I think a Belgian thing. We wanted to, because we have a brewing license, and obviously we don't really brew, but we wanted to have like a pretty decent beer program, and we want to be able to bring in interesting things, and have something for everybody, right? So we built that in, and it's worked well for us.
Yeah. I love your,
Bourbon. What you're about to try is our Dead Drop Pecan Bourbon, which is technically a flavored bourbon. It might surprise you. I don't know if you want to go into some of the details on how you produce it.
Yeah, absolutely. This actually was intended to sort of be a seasonal, like we would do it in the fall, but people seem to really like it. This is something that for me, like one of my favorite flavor notes in bourbon is nuts, like pecans and that kind of stuff. So I want to find a way to sort of like harness that flavor and bring it to the forefront. So with this, we work with the last remaining pecan farm in Illinois. They send us pecan wood, which we chop up and then age with whiskey. And then we do another aging with roasted pecans. So you kind of have like two components of the flavor. You get like the toastiness of the wood and then like a roasty richness
Wait.
of the pecans themselves.
so you roast the pecans and drop them in the whiskey barrel?
Yep.
And then age them for how long? With the chips.
Yeah,
The pecan
we
wood
do them in
chips?
steps. I do them in steps because the pecans themselves get overpowering pretty quickly. So the wood can be about a couple months. This takes mature bourbon, matured with the wood chunks, staves for
Yeah.
a few months, and then we do a maceration with the roasted pecans. That's only 3 days because after that you get a lot of the tannins that come out.
we know that.
So it's very
Me and my wife make bourbon balls, and
okay.
I will send you guys some.
Please.
So
Yeah.
they're designed. I would work with any distillery to sell them if you guys were interested. And I would use your bourbon.
Uh-huh.
It's just like, and the cost goes down when you send me the bourbon. But what I do is I age the pecans like 4 months. It happened during. I had started. I used to do it for like 4 weeks a month, and then when COVID hit, I wasn't going to be making bourbon balls for people, so it went out like 4 months before I was like, and so the bourbon that's left over is like, it merges with the pecans, but we use the pecans, we grind them up, and then you put butter, powdered sugar, and then you make the ball part, and then you dip them in chocolate or white chocolate. We dip them, and then you can put a soaked pecan on the top, or you could put the crushed pecans or salt. There's all different things you could put on, a cherry, all different type of things. But what's left over is where my wife takes over on the bourbon balls, and I help, but she perfected it. It's like when you bite into it, it's a 21 and over thing. It's not like you could sell these for kids. I'd have to do it with anybody with a distillery. It's basically you need a liquor license to sell these, okay?
Yeah.
And I can't sell them personally, but I could hook up with someone like you guys, and there's been people interested, but then I give them away as gifts.
Yeah.
During the holidays, we make our batches, we go down, and people love them. But when you bite into it, it's like you taste the bourbon, and every different bourbon makes them taste different, but she's just got it down. But I get the leftover bourbon, and everybody's like, well, it's bitter, and the pecan, because it pulls out some of the bitter. And what I'll do is I'll take a flavored bourbon. So I'm interested, and I will put some flavored bourbon in with that to make it. Now I thought that the pecans would soak out the alcohol, right? And that's what, because it was, you bite into it and it tastes like bourbon. I mean, it's like some of the other ones you taste, and it's more candy. This is more alcohol forward. So, but then I have whatever's left, so I'll add in flavored bourbon. Peach, I've done peach, Jim Beam peach, I've done vanilla, and I get it to where it's a nice flavor, not too sweet, whatever. But I was wrong. The pecans don't suck the alcohol. They just take some, but it just takes what you were doing and takes it to another level, because all that's left is the alcohol. So I'll be just sitting downstairs and I have a couple Glencairns of it, and then all of a sudden I'm gone.
Yeah.
So I learned that.
It's really good.
That sounds really good.
I
Send me more
totally
information
expected
on
this
it.
to be
For sure, 100%. You need to give me a card before I leave.
Pecan flavored. You know,
There it is.
It's not.
I should give you a
nothing
card.
like that. It's
Nah.
just subtle.
Yeah.
like subtle.
Like
It's
I
there.
said, like balance, you know.
Yeah, it's.
I'll leave
subtle.
you a stack of cards, so if anybody's interested to see, once I put this together on YouTube for you guys and whatever, they can check it out. So I'll just leave you a stack.
Cool, man. Yeah, I'll get your card before you go.
Yeah, no problem. All right, let's go to the pecan flavor.
Yeah,
I'm
so
sorry to
pecan-
interrupt you. I will edit me out for sure.
No, that's cool.
So yeah, the pecan bourbon, a lot of oil lipids in there.
Yeah, I mean, look at it.
sort of-
It doesn't move.
Like Ari was saying, the idea was to impart like a little extra layer of complexity in there to really underscore those nutty sort of tasting notes. So it started out as a fall-winter release, a specialty product. This will be really nice. People can do like a variation of an old-fashioned, you know, and just really highlight that little pecan note in there. It's turned into our most popular product right now. So we made it available year-round. We can't make enough of it.
Yeah, and like you said, like we weren't trying to make a liqueur. We don't want this to be sweet.
Well,
We
that's
want it-
86 proof. That's no liqueur.
Yeah. We want this to be
No,
like-
I understand what you're saying.
It reads like a bourbon. Now the TTB, you know, we begrudgingly had to call it a flavored bourbon, right?
You have no choice.
And that's a connotation that we're well aware of, like in the
Yeah, but-
industry.
but
there's
you're-
a lot of really bad.
But you're not.
flavored
There's no.
bourbon.
But there's no. There's no sugar in here.
No.
You're flavoring it with the wood and and the pecan, and it's like kind of delicious.
I like it.
I understand why it's a good seller.
No artificial flavors, and that's the thing, though, is that it is a flavored bourbon. So part of it's us trying to like maybe lend a little legitimacy to that category, where it's like you can flavor bourbon without bastardizing.
Well,
it,
just
you know?
remember,
Right there.
in my opinion, it's like we're the 10% of whiskey lovers, and then there's 90% of the other drinking population, and of that 90% of drinking, probably 50% will drink the flavored bourbons over the regular bourbon. So you're in a connotation that although it amongst us 10%, the other part just absolutely loves it and drinks it. There's a reason why those flavored bourbons are on the market, because they just fly off the shelves. I mean, if they didn't sell those flavored bourbons, they wouldn't be
Yeah,
there.
there's a time and a place for those. We're hoping that this kind of meets people in the middle. It's like some folks really love those flavored bourbons, and you know, this is definitely, you get that nuttiness. But then likewise, the bourbon purist, we hope will appreciate it, because yes, it is flavored, but it's not sweetened. You know, the sweetness obtained is from the barrel, and yeah.
Yep.
I like it. It's good.
It's like you guys got a cool dynamic going. It's just a classic, I would say, Hollywood dynamic. You're tall, and when you're
What do you
small.
say?
No, I'm just looking at this and I'm just going, perfect.
Nah, dynamic duo.
Yeah,
It works
there you
out
go.
well. He does like the history.
Although he would, in this duel, you'd be Robin, he'd be Batman, right?
Whoa.
But not as far as the distillery goes. I'm not talking about that, but as far as the size, you got to go with.
Penguin, okay.
No, I'm Alfred.
He's Alfred. Wait, so what are we going with now?
This is the Dead Drops.
Oh, wait a minute. That's the other
Oh, shit.
gin. Here, dump. If you're ready, you can.
So you're gonna dump the gin into the gin, and
No,
then
no, those
he's
were the
getting
gin
me a new
glasses.
one. Yeah, thank
Sorry.
you.
There you go.
So this is a regular bourbon,
Yep.
Yep.
This is our
similar to what we drink. It's not.
No, this
not
is different actually.
Okay.
So this is actually sourced MGP high, relatively high rye bourbon. Like I said, we don't make a ton of bourbon at the moment, but really wanted to. Look,
Why not? My God, just the nose right off the bat, right?
no, I mean, I love it, and for me, like the excitement for particularly with bourbon is just the blending and trying to create a certain flavor profile. So I love this, and I love the MGP mash bill that we use, 21% rye one. And when I blend it, I'm trying to get vanilla, like a lot of apricot and stone fruit, a little bit of peach, maybe some caramel.
The vanilla's there on the palate for sure.
I like that. How can you not like that, right?
Like a cinnamon sort of.
Yeah, I think that's
But when you taste so much whiskey and you deal with the craft distillers and you deal with the big guys, the craft distillers it's such an art form, and there's what would you say? So some people they think that if you're like you're not stripping the grain out and you're not aging it for 8-10 years, that somehow that's a thing that you should be doing. But in reality, when the whole idea of whiskey throughout our country was keeping it used to be clear. I mean, and then it was like light and whatever, but there's so many different categories. But you have to appreciate each pot still is definitely different than column still. And what you guys can do is add so much different flavors. And why would you try and compete with the big guys that already got that covered? And this is just such a fantastic, it's a cross between the single malts and the big guys.
So when these came out, we were doing, bourbon and rye was our initial primary focus.
And I understand.
So when the Old Fashioned came out, when the Pecan and this one came out, these were all, Thornton Distilling Company bourbons as the base. Once we did that pivot to single malt whiskey, we depleted our inventory. So to keep these on the market, we started sourcing that MGP bourbon to use as the base for these.
Well, I understand it, but then
we get some really good barrels from them.
So you're mixing yours with theirs, or is it just theirs?
Right now, it's just theirs.
Right, and so then it's your palates.
Yeah.
And I can tell, honestly, throughout, I can tell your palate, and your palate picks up. There's lots of subtleties in it. You like to. Once again, it's elegant. It's an elegant bourbon, and it's got its place, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely. I can't believe we drank what we drank, and they're all good. Balancing thing is so important in any liquor. Whatever you're drinking, if it's not balanced right, it can be off-putting. So
definitely.
I can't. It's
really cool stuff. So this is our bottle old fashioned. We make.
Thank you. My God, you didn't overdo it with the cinnamon spice and crap. There's so many people that do the bitters that just overpower the cinnamon, and that's my least favorite profile of an old fashioned.
Cinnamon?
It's the aromatic bitters that do it. They pour those in, and it's so cinnamon heavy. It's like you're eating a cinnamon hot instead of drinking a drink. Now it's okay to have a little bit, but not overpowering.
So what's the gold fashioned?
That's the one he was saying was another
level.
So that's a different company.
That's not you guys.
So we don't want to highlight that one at all in this if we can.
This is good.
No.
Good. So you make these bitters.
Yep.
You said, so what are you making? What are you trying to go for in your bitter?
Well, it's actually interesting. Traditionally, the way that you make bitters is to macerate and extract with alcohol. But because I came from a bit of a brewing background and we're already making the sugar, the syrup, and I use a rich demerara that you actually want to start to get to caramelize before we even make a syrup. So you get a little bit of scorched, burnt sugar flavors from it. But then we make a syrup that is boiling. So I'm using heat to extract the flavors, and then throughout the boil at different intervals you're able to add different spices, so you're getting different flavors from it. So I'd say ours does have a decent amount of cinnamon and
it does, but it's not over the top.
No, I think a lot of the vanilla is present because again, in American whiskey, I just love the vanilla that comes through.
Put it this way: the cinnamon's there, but it's for me, the cinnamon's there.
Yeah, no.
But it's in a different place where if it's when it's overpowering, it's
It
up
hits you in the
front.
Yeah.
This is there on the last part of it. There's a little bit of cinnamon there,
A little bit,
and
of
it's
cinnamon's
delicious,
great.
right? No, I'm saying
Exactly.
They've
just
moved.
when you
He's
do-
moved once again, elegantly moving things around for your palate, and it's just
Thank you.
Elegance
nice
good.
job.
So that's what we go for.
Well, no wonder that's a hit, because if I mean, most people aren't going to be able to go home and make anything close to that. They're not going to. So that's a winner for them, is to be able to take it, just pour 2 ounces, and voila, here we go.
Yeah, you want to make it like easy for folks, but you also want to make it, the same type of quality that you expect at a great cocktail. So yeah, and I think that the Demerara sugar that we use gives it a really unique profile, because I'm actually mixing in the sugar dry with heat applied, so it starts to caramelize before we even add water. So you get this real depth of flavor, these caramel flavors, maybe some marshmallow as well. We also use a bitter orange peel, a little bit of sarsaparilla, a little bit of licorice root, a touch of cardamom to give it kind of like a piquant quality.
You look at it like a distilled spirit. Nice. Nice.
Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die.
Hey, Scotchy Bourbon Boys fans, this is Alan Bishop, Indiana's alchemist of the Black Forest. So I'm tuning in here today to tell you all about the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute channel on YouTube. If you're at all interested in the art of distilling, whether it be home distilling or professional distilling, and the intense geekery that goes into that process, then check out the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute on YouTube. I promise you're going to learn something you didn't know before about the art.